Hi, this is Mark, and welcome to Enhancing the Human Experience, the podcast designed to help you get the most out of life. And I'm sitting here with my good friend, AlejAndro Anastasio.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Alejandro. And I always have so much trouble thinking how to introduce you. You know, you're a professional speaker, world-class Aikido practitioner and former sensei.
Hi.
Toastmasters, musician.
Yeah, I've done some TED Talks.
Your bio just I go on and on.
Yeah, it seems to go on and on, but you can just let people know that I am a professional speaker, podcaster, lover of children, and wannabe superhero.
You're making it easy on me now. You took the work off me there. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. No problem.
So you just started a new podcast, which is a new venture, and I've listened to 2 episodes. It's absolutely phenomenal. And tell us how that project came about.
Well, as a professional speaker, I'm trying to find ways to further enhance my speaking career and maybe spark it in a different way. Sometimes you just got to try things out. A lot of people write books, become professional speakers. I've been trying to become a better paid professional speaker through doing more speaking.
Yeah.
And that can be a challenge because, of course, I can get speaking gigs, but getting well-paying speaking gigs takes a little more work.
Yeah.
And I don't always have the financial freedom and opportunity to just be on the road a lot without getting paid. Not that I don't mind doing gigs for free, but it also comes down to figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I'm working on a book. Writing books are a great way to get more speaking gigs. If you're an author, that looks great on your website. And I was just looking for something that I can actually do in a speaking format, that right now I can spend a little more time at home, stay a little more grounded, and still spread my word out universally.
Yeah.
And podcasting seemed to make the most sense. And I've mentioned before, 15 years ago, podcasting was a hit. It was just way live. And then it faded out a little bit as video came on. Now, depending on who you talk to and how old they are, I was talking to some younger chaps, and I was like, oh yeah, 15, 18 years ago, podcasting was big. And they were like, ooh, when I was like 9. But it's making a comeback right now. So I thought, oh yeah, podcasting might be a really good way to go. Just to get the word out, just to be speaking, give people access to what I'm talking about. And it might spark a little more speaking gigs.
Yeah, well, especially for someone in your field, I think podcasting is primo. Because you, like you said, it just broadcasts you.
Sure. And
people are going to hear your message, hear what you have to say, and say, I want that guy to come speak to my organization, my group. Because you have an excellent message. And that's one thing I was going to ask you. You know, not only are the podcasts stories entertaining, and I'm at the edge of my seat, but I pulled nuggets out and I wrote notes of major high arching life lessons from your podcasts. So do you build a podcast around that, or does that just naturally flow out of the story?
I think it's a little bit of both. If anything, I'd say it probably flows more out of the story. And I think about that, but not necessarily that much. That just naturally is who I am. You were in my martial arts school. I told a lot of stories. I tell a lot of stories. My podcast is pretty much my brand, which is One Hand Speaks. Mm-hmm. I was born without 2 hands. I've lived my whole life with 1 hand. And I've just overcome a lot of things. And living a one-handed life has a lot of cool quirks. And if you can change your perspective a little bit, you can get a lot out of it. And I think what's important is, regardless of whatever stories I'm telling, a lot of my podcasts are about my experience living life with 1 hand and overcoming certain adversities and looking at certain views. Naturally, I think good things just come out of that. Yeah. And it's important that my podcasts aren't just for one-handed disabled people. I hear that a podcast should be very refined and very niched, but if I can earn a black belt with 1 hand, I think other people can with 2.
Totally.
And it's just so much about the stories need to apply also to everyone. So it's a very individual experience that has a universal message. So I think a lot of people can learn things from a one-handed life that can be very beneficial. And then I'm just that kind of person. I got a lot of great things to say. I'm very deep into Buddhism. I'm very steeped deeply into the martial arts. I simply want to help people. I think not having 2 hands is a great benefit because I like myself. I overcome a lot of things, and that just inspires people to do the same.
Yeah. Well, and you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, you've done so much at a deep level. Stories are like, your bag of stories is just deep and full. I mean,
I can pull a lot of cool stuff out.
yeah.
That can help people, and that's funny, and that's inspirational. And my whole thing is entertainment with an enlightening edge.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because all of those bases are covered from the podcasts I've listened to at your website, onehandspeaks.com.
Onehandspeaks.com, that's my website. I just launched on May 24th, right around the corner, the day before the 40-year anniversary of Star Wars.
I saw that.
I got a bunch of sci-fi Star Wars stuff coming out. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of Jedis have one hand.
Yeah.
So I have a deep connection to Star Wars. My parents raised me on sci-fi, and I'll probably have a podcast coming up that's got a sci-fi superhero overtone pretty soon. But yes, I just launched. Check me out, onehandspeaks.com. Look for my podcast. And if you can, write a review. Go to iTunes. Check me out. Try it out. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, and it's easy to write the review. And you have simple instructions right on your website in the show notes.
Exactly. Just go to the show notes, go down to the bottom. But if you're a fan of iTunes, you listen to podcasts, you know what to do.
Right.
Now, all you got to do is do it.
Totally. And those reviews actually help rank you and help move you up the charts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because even the podcast field, from what I've seen, is getting full again. Like you said, I think it's on an upswing, because people can listen to them wherever they're at. They don't have to have the video going. They can put them on and go for a run or a walk.
Yeah, they can do them when they're driving. They're very, it's digital radio, and radio never dies out. Radio dramas, This American Life, things like that.
Yeah.
Have always been popular. People like to listen to things at their own discretion.
Yeah.
And without video, it's just, you can do things when you're listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
So people enjoy that. Right now, podcasting's hot.
It is.
It's a good time as a speaker to engage into podcasting and try to make something of that.
Yeah.
Build a following that way.
Yeah. Now you've done. We didn't even talk about the fact that you're a musician. I mean, we skipped. See, that's what I'm saying. There's so many nuggets stuck in the nook and crannies.
Sure.
So you've done musician, public speaking, performance art. How is podcasting different, or is it?
It is a little bit different, because typically in front of a live audience, speaking has a certain quality to it. And then podcasting, you're really doing, for me, by myself. And then right now we're having an interaction. So this interview has a certain tone to it, a certain timbre, a certain quality. I can get excited because you're here. When I'm in front of an audience, I can feed off the audience feeds off me. And when you're listening to a live audience-based podcast, which a couple of my first ones are, that has a quality to it, because you hear people laughing. You feel like you're with someone. So the trick is, in certain podcasts, is to give it that flavor alone.
Yeah.
And that takes a little bit of practice.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So there are some differences there. You do have to prepare for a podcast differently than a live talk, but they have a certain feel together. So for me, it's just going to be a practice, trying to figure out how to make that work, how to get excited when I'm just telling stories by myself.
Yeah.
And some of them are about my one-handed experiences, but I plan on moving more into telling specific stories about those experiences and just having a venue for storytelling. And my approach and perspective of what makes a good story.
Yeah.
And talking, interviewing other storytellers and spoken word artists and people of that nature. Because when I really had to think about what it is that I really do, I tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're long or short, drawn out, deep, exciting, cutting edge of my life, the darker side of experiences that we have, whatever it is. Over the course of my lifetime, people have just said I tell good stories. They like to hear me speak.
And I would agree with that, as we've talked about. And that's why I say I'm very excited for your podcast to move forward and hear those stories come rolling out.
Sure. I am too.
Yeah.
I am too.
Once you're over the technical...
the technical hurdles of podcasting, yes, it's a little bit of a challenge to set all of that up. And Mark and I are going to actually do a couple podcasts about what it takes to get started in podcasting and setting up a little checklist and something along those lines to help people along.
Yeah, so look for that coming down the road. Because,
Sure.
And both, you're technical. You've done a lot of stuff online and web before, and I've done a fair share, but this setting up...
Yeah, it's a whole different groove. It's a whole different groove. Yeah, I'm a professional designer, right? I work as a graphic designer professionally for the last 18 years. I do my own audio. I do my own video. I set up my own websites. I create my own marketing. It's pretty much a one-handed show. Right?
But I'm bumped.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do it all by myself. I was just telling some friends yesterday. I don't have a big stock of cash where I can just pay people to set all this up. I have to take care of that myself. And I will tell you, it was pretty challenging to kind of weed through the podcasting realm to set up a podcast. Yeah. I mean, on one level, it might, if you got some money, it might be easier to just pay someone to do it.
Yeah. And we did invest it. We both of us, invested a chunk of time.
I've invested a fair amount of time learning how to set everything up and how to make everything work, separate from rocking the audio, like, recording myself, buying the gear, figuring out how to use the gear. How do you use, whether it's Audacity, SoundCloud, Audience, you choose, you have to be able to cut it.
Yeah.
I last year went to this Salt Lake City Comic-Con, very great Comic-Con. Love going to Comic-Cons. Got a superhero speaking persona.
Yeah.
And I've spoken at a number of Comic-Cons. I love doing it. And I went to a podcasting gig there, and it was just about sci-fi podcasters that are real famous. There's one that only talks about the dark side and Sith Lords, and there are a number of other people talking about Marvel versus DC, and these other women are just kind of in the sci-fi realm. And these women were great because they're like, we don't do anything other than talk. We have a sound guy that's part of our company. We call him the fairy.
The podcast fairy?
The podcasting fairy, right? And she's like, he sets everything up. We come in and talk. A week later, podcast goes up.
Yeah.
That
magic.
Ain't my experience. Yeah. The fairy the podcasting fairy takes care of everything.
Yeah. Well, I think both you and I are kind of DIY type thing.
Do it yourself.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
It takes a chunk of time, but
it does.
It gets the job done eventually.
Learning curve is tough, but it's beneficial.
Yeah.
And then living life with one hand, I don't have a lot of one-handed mentors telling me how to do things. So, I kind of got to figure stuff out on my own. And it wasn't so bad, but it certainly was challenging.
And there's so much information out there that you have to weed through and say, what's good for me and what's not. Yeah. I mean, everyone and their dog has instructions on how to start a podcast, and it's just, some of it is not helpful.
It's not. And sometimes too much information is not good.
Yeah.
Too much. It's like trying to figure out what toothpaste brand you want when there's 40 brands there.
Yeah.
I have friends that live in Russia. They're like, well, on one level, it's easy because you only have like 2 options. So you either pick that one or that one. Yeah. Because I went to the store with some of my Russian friends, and they were just like, oh, there's so many choices. Like, it's such a problem trying to figure out what and how much things cost. And
so they felt and you went to the store here in the States.
Yeah, here in the United States.
And they had sensory overload, probably.
Pretty much. Just like podcasting, trying to set up podcasting. But I think, I believe the most important aspect is knowing who you are and how you want to offer it, and then you can go from there.
I think that's perfect advice.
Those decisions, once you know what kind of podcast you want to deliver, how you want to present yourself, what you want to give, that's the most important thing. Then I think it's easy to choose your name. And then you got to do all the financial stuff, like, okay, what podcasting host do I want to set up? Do I have the skills to do this? Should I pay somebody else to do this? Is it worth that investment? And then once all that's cut, just start going.
Yeah, then you start cranking, right?
Well, yeah, then you still have to learn some audio software.
Yeah, that's that small hurdle. That's easy.
Yeah, just right? that little hurdle,
Right.
I mean, it can be done easier than better, but it's a podcast, so the sound quality should be good.
Yeah. Well, once unless you go through it, you look from the outside and you say, what's the big deal? At least that's how I kind of felt. Oh, I'll do this and this, and it'll fall into place. But once you get in there, there's an infinite fork in the road, and you're like, okay, now this one,
to make these decisions, I got to do research, and
right.
Yeah, it takes a bit of work.
Yeah, but I'm excited for the rest of your shows to come out. So, have you even looked forward to what you're going to do next? Another project, new projects on the horizon down the road, or are you still just focusing on podcasting right now and getting that?
Right now, I'm working on podcasting. I'm looking for some venues that can be a little more grounding. Not that I don't want to travel and speak. I actually just secured a gig in October out in Indiana, speaking, doing some youth empowerment speaking.
Oh, just recently?
Just recently, yeah.
Okay.
So I just secured that gig. And then typically I'm gone in the summer. I spend a couple months on a Buddhist internship. So I train very deeply as a Buddhist. I run the Boise Dharma Center here in Boise. But I'm focusing mostly on podcasting, and I'm working on a book.
Okay.
So I have 3 small books that I want to write, potentially 4, but I'm just in the process of figuring out how that's going to work and laying out the outline of that and just getting that rolling.
Yeah.
So those are my big projects. I've kind of put speaking on the side, trying to spark my speaking career by doing other things, podcasting, having a book, things of that nature.
And like you said, it's the podcast is brand new. You're like a week in, haven't probably had a sense to any data to see how it's coming back. Obviously, so new. So
very new. So
out.
it's going to take a couple months to kind of feel that out and see how that works and where am I going to market that and what kind of response I get, who's into it, who's listening, who likes it.
Yeah.
As a one-handed podcasting show, I'm interested to see how many two-handed people listen consistently.
Well, you got one. Tally up one right here because I'm listening every time. So. Yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by. And again, your website is onehandspeaks.com. And I'll put all of your links to social media in the show notes for this podcast on my website, gmarkphillips.com, so they can go and connect with you. Because you post other cool stuff. You've got your hands in a lot of cool stuff.
I cover a lot of ground. So yeah, onehandspeaks.com is my official mainstream professional speaking site. You can get my podcast there, but I also have a great superhero. My superhero speaking persona is theguardianofhope.com.
Yeah.
So you can go there and check that out. If you know anything about Moldavite, IdahoMoldavite.com. I sell some Buddhist practice gear at malacounters.com. All you got to do is just Google my name, Alejandro Anastasio. You'll find a lot.
You're busy. Yeah. You've been busy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, I ran a professional martial arts school for 10 years, 3 Shapes Aikido. You can go to my YouTube page. I need to work on my YouTube page, but you can find me everywhere online at One Hand Speaks. Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram. Check me out on Instagram.
Yeah, I love that.
Follow me on Instagram. I want to start doing a lot more just with Instagram. But you can find me everywhere. I got a big web presence. I've been doing a lot of things online for a long time.
Yeah.
Ran festivals in Boise, Idaho. Got some funky music online. I'm more of a artist that produces music, but whatever. Just check me out.
Yeah.
Check me out. Let me know.
Stuff.
But yeah, I've spoken in 7 different countries. I've been in Estonia, Finland, Czech Republic. Competed in the World Championship for Public Speaking with Toastmasters in 2014 in Malaysia. Spoke in Singapore. Yeah, I've been around.
Yeah, you have.
I got a great track record.
Right.
I got a great message, and I just want to help people. Just want to inspire people. And if that's done through laughter, then great. If you find more enlightenment on that Buddhist twist, that's great too.
Yeah.
If you just get something out of me, share me.
Absolutely.
Let people know what's going on.
Absolutely. You're a great person to share. So
thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. Ross, thanks for kicking it with me here.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. You've helped me out a lot in the past, so I'm just giving back a little bit.
Anytime.
All
right. So we'll wrap it up. And until next time, all the best. Health, wealth, and success.
Okay. Bye now. Signing out. One Hand Speaks. Play your hand.